often for immediate response to calls. One, this will decrease response times to fire and EMS calls. And then just secondly, just to kind of, provide a little financial benefit for our volunteers for the work and the time that they give up, in their lives, away from their families and all that. After considering different options that relate to personal property tax incentives and discussions with the Fire and Rescue Association, a standard incentive plan was created that is based upon duty crew hours and or call hours. And I'll pull up the more specific detailed plan too, but just kind of a high level summary of it is the incentive plan provides 3 different tier incentive amounts based upon duty crew hours and or call hours served and for leadership and administration. So these amounts are based upon if it were for a full fiscal year. So if someone were to do 288 duty crew hours per year, they would be eligible for a $595 incentive. And I'll talk a little bit about the parentheses amount too, just so that's clear. If someone were to do 144 duty crew hours per year, they'd be eligible for a $300 incentive amount. And also leadership, there's also incentive for leadership and administration within the each of the companies and stations. Limit 3 per station, and that's for $175 per year. So just to touch on where it says 288 duty crew hours per year minus the number of calls while on duty crew. So example, let's just say you're doing a 4-hour duty crew. Well, if you do a call during that 4 hours, you can't like double dips, for instance. You can't use the hours that you're on that call to kind of add on to your duty crew hours. But let's just say you're not on duty crew and you respond to an EMS assist lift or something like that, and it takes, 30 minutes or an hour, that hour would be eligible. So that's why it says minus call hours while on duty crew. So that's just a little clarification to that. So one, I'll open up the incentive guidelines more specifically. And then, I think just a little bit about implementation date. I'd just like to have a little conversation about that a little bit. So let me open up the plan more specifically here. So again, we talked about what the goal is. We talked about the proposal. So some of the guidelines will be, so one, duty crews must be signed up at least 12 hours prior to their shift, and the use of the county emergency service computer software will track the hours for each of the members of the departments. Hours are based upon annual participation, not monthly average. Volunteer can receive credit for hours at any station within Fluvanna County, but will only qualify for one incentive. The duty crew hour credit is only awarded for hours physically in the station. There must be a minimum of 4 hours while on duty crew. And then credit for calls are only awarded if member is either 1, arrives at station and responds on apparatus. 2, for instance, responders that have to drive by the incident to reach an apparatus may respond directly in POV. Again, as I said before, EMS response assistant, lift assist, and may respond directly in POV. And then fire and EMS volunteer training would be eligible as well. So some criteria for a fire unit: max of 4 positions per unit per duty crew credit. So for a fire apparatus, firefighter 1, hazmat awareness, EVOC 3 if driving, and must be staffed with a minimum of 2 personnel fitting this criteria for a duty crew. Criteria for EMS unit: max of 4 positions per unit for duty crew credit. Again, certified as EVOC, EMT, AEMT, intermediate, or paramedic. And additional members with CPR, EMT, AMT, intermediate, or paramedic, or students in EMS classes, including personnel precepting for release. Payout. So I've got one thing highlighted, and I want to talk about that one a little bit. But let's just say from a fiscal year basis going on, tracking would be on a fiscal year basis, July 1 through June 30th of every year. and tracking will continue the same every fiscal year thereafter. The payout would be once a year. So typically 3 to 4 weeks after finance receives all verified data from all volunteer companies and stations. If volunteers don't make the tier 1 requirements, they could qualify for tier 2, but can only qualify for 1 tier per calendar year. And then, for instance, tier 3, 3 support members may be chosen by the department leadership. Members must remain the same within the calendar year. So that's kind of again, it's kind of a simple incentive plan, some simple standards. I think just the biggest discussion, and again, I'm happy to answer any questions. I think the biggest discussion is implementation and when that starts. So, just having some discussion internally about when that would be. I know there were some thoughts about potentially going back retroactive to January 1. There is concern that could provide a bit of administrative challenge going back. And I'll say it just from this standpoint, we've got an interim person that's in the role right now. We're short-staffed in a few other areas, so we don't necessarily have the personnel to be able to do some of the administrative functions when we're short-staffed as it is. So I'm concerned about doing something retroactively. Now, ideally, from my standpoint, it would be July 1. But if we had to do something sooner, we could. I would say if we had to, I would not want to do anything before April 1 from an effective date. So you could do a 3-month trial. And so some of the other challenges with just kind of the implementation is, kind of going that we've got an interim director in place. Apparently they're in the process of also changing their scheduling software, going from one thing to another. And so all the folks in the department don't necessarily know that new software yet. So again, if that software is the tracking mechanism, trying to start it really soon would be, I think we would run into a little bit of a challenge. So those are my only requests is ideally an effective date would be July 1, but I would say just out of just considering the staffing, I would say no earlier than April.
Did you get a hold of Steve?
I did.
And he said the same basically?
Correct.
So how much work would he have to do? Because most of your volunteers fall under a chief, a captain, and lieutenants in the volunteer fire companies, with the exception of Lake Rescue, which has their own tracking system. So would the county EMS supervisor actually be doing anything?
Well, I mean, so what I understand from it again, and if you look at the guidelines, it says the use of the county emergency service software would track the hours for the members. So for instance, again, and I'm only just in kind of getting into our lab tech, the scheduling software on a really, really high level. I mean, there's different areas in there to sign up for things. And so from what I understood is that software would be the tracking mechanism for everything. So we're not having to go out to every different person to try and track stuff down. It would all be done through the software. So you're talking about adding people into the software. And so kind of moving forward, that's kind of the administrative piece. If you did something like at something date certain moving forward, there's an administrative setup piece to it. If you went retroactively, not only do you have the administrative setup piece, but then it's going back and trying to verify everything prior and getting just getting the information, and then someone's got to physically enter that information into the software. So those are my only. Again, I think certainly we have a good plan, a good incentive plan. I think it's simple. Like I said, speaking with Mr. Witten, I think it certainly addresses some of the concerns we had before. But just kind of the implementation pieces is the only thing that I think is a major discussion.
I feel like I remembered from the FRA meeting that there's some conversation about, and maybe it's not a big enough issue to even do it, but about trying to get it going before July 1, so we'd have somewhat of a test period before the full year. But is there any real benefit to that?
Because I mean, what I was thinking is you can implement this and do it manual tracking through the chiefs, and then allow us to work the bugs out in this, while the county staff works out the bugs in their automated software. And then from 1 July, say, once you've worked the county software out, everyone will go into that automated system. So rather than all of us go into it at the time and then we're like, oh, we've got flaws in our program, we could use this period and do it on the chief's honor. You know, if you can't trust your fire chiefs, then it's a larger discussion.
I see. I
So-
didn't
so
understand it
you're-
much to be about getting the system, the bugs worked out
Yeah.
until that.
The
We know
county
that the
supervisor
system
works
you got.
his software piece and the chiefs work the program
Yeah.
bugs out, and two of them are running simultaneously.
I've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
One, what are we gonna do for life members? People that have dedicated 30 years of service, but are no longer doing it. Are we still gonna do the decals for them? Or the decals still gonna be a part of the program?
I
Or
didn't
we
think
get
about,
one decal?
yeah, I didn't think we were doing anything, getting rid of the decal.
No.
This is just,
In addition, that was one question, because I wasn't sure if we were dropping the decal. Are we doing anything for life members, or is that just gonna be the decal?
it is just the decal.
Okay.
Because again, the purpose of this is to get people to respond to calls, to hopefully augment having to go courier.
Right, I know exactly what you're saying,
Yeah.
trust me, because I've been doing it for a few
Yeah,
years.
you've been doing it for a long while.
I just want to make sure we don't forget about those
Yep.
that came before us.
Yep.
And, let's see, what was the other?
Point of order, real quick, Mr. Sheridan. Do we need to get Mr. O'Brien in here?
Oh,
It looks like he showed
yeah,
up
he's
here.
on.
Sorry, Mr. Sheridan.
Oh, no, you're
Yeah.
good. I was like, what did I do wrong?
No, you're fine.
That's usually Mr. Howard.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up there.
How's
Can you
wanna
guys,
certify him coming into the
We just need a
meeting?
quick motion. He just needs to state where he's calling it
Motion to
from.
allow Mr. O'Brien to join the meeting from wherever he's calling from.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Sheridan, second by Mr. Good, all in favor.
Aye.
Chair
And
votes
then-
aye, passes 4-0.
Then he needs to state where he's calling in from and why he's calling in.
Yep, Mr. O'Brien,
Okay.
I
Can
you hear me?
think you're unmuted. If you can just kind of state the reason why, where you're calling from and why, and the reason why you're participating remotely.
sure, can you hear me or not?
His mouth moving.
We don't hear you, sir.
Okay, second, let's see.
We're getting the close up view now.
It's like here, I can never hear him when he.
He's losing his IT contracts the more his mouth moves and the words don't come out.
We can
Can
accept sign
you-
language.
He was inducted.
Can you-
on the
Somebody
mothership.
tell me.
Can you all hear me?
They all can hear him.
That
but
doesn't
we
look
can't
like
hear him.
353.
Everybody else,
Uh,
but
Andy,
I think the problem may be on your end. I mean, I'm not muted or,
I
oh,
haven't seen the owls.
I'm muted.
do you have any thoughts? So everyone on Zoom can hear
He's
Mr.
muted.
O'Brien, but we can't.
Can you hear me now?
him Through here, any thoughts on what that could be? He did, like the people that are online can hear him when he unmutes, but we can't hear him in here.
I'm unmuted.
Is there any setting I should?
It would be a Zoom setting, it would be on your
Okay,
computer. Is there anything? So do you have it so that people are? Oh, hang on, go back, change your speaker to owl.
right there.
No, I'm using my cell phone.
There you go.
Okay, yeah, I was saying I was using my cell phone, so. I don't know. Okay, I'm got the flu virus that everybody seems to have, and I'm probably still feverish and don't want to give this to anybody else. So I asked to participate remotely. And so I'm at my office, participating remotely.
Okay, all right, so yeah, so back to the incentive plan, yes, so I.
Yeah, so that you answered a couple of the questions I have. I mean. April 1st. That's 3 months out the year.
Well, I
I would-
mean,
I would-
and you all determine what you want, like I said, I mean, I was only going from the April 1, if you're
Right.
trying to do something within the software, I mean. Ideally, if we're trying to do something official in the software, July 1 would be best, but if you want to do something from an honor system, you can certainly do it like that too.
So what's the purpose of wanting to do this before July 1? Is it A, to get the incentives out because we already have money budgeted for it, or is it B, to do a trial run / implementation, or C, a combination of all of the above?
I would say a combination. Because you're doing two things at once.
Because
You're trialing it.
how many volunteers do we have that have answered a minimum of a call this year?
Oh,
Of a call,
Or done, I guess it would be hard to track, but that have already met these standards. Will we even be able to pull that from the
I
current
can,
software?
well, I don't know about specifics. I can just tell you for, oh, I'm towards that here. Active,
in the
like,
lake out of
we have to
60.
track things for sending in certain things for like workers' comp and stuff.
No.
I'm gonna say 150 within the county, maybe more than that, maybe 200, I don't know.
well, you talking about number of volunteers?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I mean, when you count in lake rescue, the fire department, water rescue, then you got Kent Store, Fork Union and Palmyra. Yeah, I'd say at least 150, and then you
Yeah.
throw in the, auxiliary members. But like, that's not gonna be a part of this, is it?
No.
no,
Okay, I just want,
Yeah.
I'm just checking on that.
And the other one too is, I mean, Lake Rescue's picking up the slack for the county right now on a lot of calls. So, I mean, they'll make these numbers.
oh yeah, well, I mean, they already do 12-hour duty crews,
Correct.
from what I understand, so
So
that's,
if you think 20 12-hour shifts gets you to the 288, the lake rescue people will be there.
Yeah.
Come by end of June.
Mike, what was the relevance of your question?
I guess the relevance was, if this was just about getting money out that we budgeted, perhaps we could find a way to provide these incentives prior to July 1 in some way, shape or form and disperse that somehow. I don't know where that conversation would even start or how we would go about it fairly, but my thought would be that that would at least give part A, if part A is to give some incentive money out, would be to find a way to, maybe it's $100 a person, just the money's already there. Or something to that tune. That would be just a starting point, and then wait till July 1st for the implementation piece to help on the administrative. And that way you're giving the incentive while also not putting pressure on, some folks who are in interim positions or things like that to get the software up and running in a rush to get out this money. So my thought would be if you could do this outside of the system that's proposed here, provide some of that that's already been set aside in last year's budget, and then start this system on July 1st, that would A, get the money out to people, and B, also allow time for the implementation that staff has asked for.
Well, the one thing about that is, because the money that we allotted would go all the way back to July 1.
well, yeah, I mean, we have budgeted in this year's budget 37,500.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, the hours, so I mean, you could have chiefs look at a certain number of calls if you run 20 calls, whatever.
So is so that money's not spent, it goes back
Back to general fund.
the general fund.
Yep.
Okay, and it's obviously, I guess it is specifically tied to some sort of incentive, correct? It would have to be used for some sort of incentive if it were used in this year's budget.
I mean, yes, I mean, the board set the money there for a specific purpose, so I would say because it's kind of there for a specific purpose, I would say, yeah, it would have to be used for some type of incentive.
But that could be,
But the board could change that too. They could
Right.
change what's, again, you could change that if you want to do something.
But I mean, for you chiefs right now, they're all tracking the amount of hours and attendance at monthly meetings anyways, because most of them, when you look in their bylaws to vote for officers and do other stuff, you have to meet those criteria. So there's no extra work on you chiefs right now.
Well, so then I guess what I would say is then we would need to get a log of every month of every company that's been doing that then.
Yeah, I don't think, I wouldn't say that would be overly, we got one chief here. Would that be overly cumbersome on you?
Yeah, but she go out.
Yeah. And I know on the fire side, Richie has it. He posts it up on the board every month. I think most chiefs do.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Track all of it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's listed if you go in and run duty crew or, I mean,
So
sorry, I mean,
if we didn't start till July 1, but we didn't have all are we saying we believe we'll have, for lack of a better term, all the infrastructure in place by then? Where it'd be a fresh, clean start? But if we didn't, I'm trying to figure out somewhere between that, or would it be more like if we started in the next month or so, that we're then gonna have bugs to work out? And if some of that started July 1, but you don't have the bugs worked out till August 1, then are you gonna be going retro through July. Trying to get information in because
Well, I mean, I guess what would happen, let's just say the board approved it today and said we want to start July 1, we would have to start, they would have to start immediately trying to get the software up and running. That's kind of the first thing. Again, whether you start now or whenever, again, we've got someone in interim in that position and we're a few positions short. So, you know, it's just gonna require some people that are in the Department of EMS to try and figure this piece out a little bit. And again, I'm not sure of when that switch over with the scheduling software from a lad tech to this new one's coming in. So I thought I understood it to be very soon though, because the software we have now is specifically for scheduling. The new thing they're looking at is more comprehensive, like scheduling, fleet maintenance, and a lot of other things, stuff like that. But I mean, to go back to your question, I think, yeah, I mean, I think if you started July 1, the thought is that it would allow some of the formal administrative processes in the software to get in place. But if you want to do something ahead of time, you know, I think it would just have to be more or less, I think trying to get it done, like officially done in the scheduling software by April 1, I think would be, under the circumstances, I think would be a heavy lift. So I think if the board wants to start something before July 1, I think as Mr. Hodge said, you'd have to kind of do it based upon providing log sheets or kind of like a honor system or whatever.
Chiefs would have to supply us with a list.
Yeah.
They probably can do that, but it would be the chiefs sending us a list saying, these are the people, here's the amount of hours that they've done.
I say do manual from January to July, let the county work its system out. We'll have data on how this worked, feedback from the chiefs, and then go with that. Because if that can get kicked down the road again,
yeah.
you know,
But
I just don't want
you
to
two have a better.
I don't want to keep punting this down the road, you know.
Computers.
Well, I mean, what we said in my only and I'll defer. I mean, honestly, if Mike and Tim were to say that's the route to go, I mean, that's probably what I would follow. My only concern and would be that when you come up with a policy and have all the good intentions in the world and you're excited about it and it's something you want to implement, so you kind of force it and then it unintended consequences come about. I don't want to say people's feelings get hurt, but something, you know, things happen. And I feel like if this gets unrolled the wrong way, it could have the complete opposite effect of what we're trying to have done here.
That's the only reason I brought up life members, think people like that, because I don't want to have them sitting there going, what about me? You know, the ones that have done it for 40 years.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you stop?
I-
There were
Yeah,
like
I
members in the
understand that.
1800s and
Somebody's gonna get
1700s. Do we go back to the founding of the county? Not that long.
A year.
Yes, 2. But either way, what I'm saying is the purpose of the incentive program is to encourage volunteerism, because the alternative is you get paid staff. And if you think this is
cheaper.
yes.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about this for a long time.
Yeah. So it just comes down to,
The chiefs will have the information that you want.
Yeah.
If you
Well, I
want to
mean,
go, if you want to go with that and just
Well,
allow the chiefs to do it,
I think what I would say is if we're going to do that, I think I would want to put something on the record that says we need X. If we're going to deviate from the guidelines for fiscal year 25.
because I promise you, I've been driving the bus the last 3 days and I'm supposed to sign in on the computer. I still haven't figured out how to do that. So
I think if we're doing it this fiscal year for all the different chiefs, they need to have a really good log of what everyone did.
And what if
And not just something on give me something that's
that would be
official.
my one thing is when you're talking about calls run,
You have image trend, you can pull the
the
report.
image trend, but how difficult would that be to go back and add up each hour because we haven't done that in the past.
You can pull the report by member.
And it will tell you how
And-
many hours they've
yeah.
been there. Okay, that's a computer.
one of my questions is that if we're concerned about it being cumbersome, doing what we've set out to do early, and not having the staff and all, if we do something different than that, is that gonna be just as cumbersome?
I don't think this, because again, we're not dealing with having, because again, if you're trying to do something retroactively in the plan. Again, you got software, you got to add people into the software, people have to be, like to say, we're tracking hours in the software, then you got to go back and say, okay, well, we got this sheet from them. And they did so many hours, we got to go in and manually put all that information into the software. I think that's the administrative difficult piece.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just get a log, I mean, for this year, if you want to do it this year, you just get a log. I think it's just going to be every chief certifying that everything is true and correct, and
So as long as the chiefs dot their i's, you're comfortable with starting that early.
We'd either have to tweak the policy for this fiscal year or it'd have to be part of the motion, because right now it says the software is what tracks that.
I think what you do is, I think as far as this goes, you maybe just tweak the motion for what you want to do for the.
Yeah, but as long as it's in the motion, what you're doing for this fiscal year, since it's different than the policy.
Two questions, is what we have set aside gonna be enough to cover if everybody? Like if all volunteers were to theoretically, which I mean, if they were all, anybody that's on a roll were to meet this, would 37.5 be enough to cover 595 times how many volunteers?
Well, it's only half, so 300, and then the 300, you could do 100 people for 30,000.
So you would say they would,
2/3 of the people.
they would need to do 144 duty
If,
crew
let's just
hours?
say you had all 100, let's just say there's 150 like really
Yes.
active volunteers, and they all hit the 288 hours, that's 89,250. We don't have 89,250 budgeted. Now I can say.
Yeah.
Regarding that, we have previous year's money that's gone unexpended.
If we budgeted it for the full fiscal year and we exhausted it in 5 months, we
62 and a
we
half
screwed
members.
up,
What's that?
last budget season.
So
62 and a half members is
what I was gonna question your numbers, so the $300 threshold, because that's the only thing you can get to, it's half amount for half a year.
Oh,
Times
I
150.
just, I'm sorry, I just did 150 times 595,
Yeah.
assuming everyone hit
It'd be
the.
45,
Yeah.
and I can tell you from the Lake Monticello numbers, you won't have, we probably have the largest on
Yeah.
our fire list of 60 some people, and you might have 20 to 30 that make it.
Yeah.
So less
So
than
quick,
half.
just
And
as
we don't
not-
do, we don't do duty crew every night of the week.
So we're not gonna, there's no way we're gonna
Yeah.
exhaust it, right?
I don't think so,
Yeah.
and let's just say if we did, I think
That's
there's
it.
I think there's a case to be made
125.
that we had some money budgeted in previous years, I think. That has gone unexpended, I don't think that's gonna.
If
be
it makes that many people show up in the last 5 months, it was a good thing to do.
Yeah.
You know,
And then by starting and doing a half a year, you'll have a good idea what your turnout's gonna be for that short period.
So do you wanna make a motion?
Yeah.
You
Yeah, and Mr. O'Brien, do you have anything else since you're kind of?
Oh, no, I mean, you can hear me, right?
Yes,
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, I think that, everybody's point's right, and we're not gonna exhaust it, and, the only comment I would make was based on, I think what Tim had said, Mr. Hodge had said, with regard to, Mr. Sheridan's concerns about life members and so on. This is a new incentive that doesn't necessarily apply retroactively to previous folks. And not that they do or don't deserve it, I don't even know what the impact is, but I think that's would be my only concern. So it's not clear to me where we ended up on that before we go to the motion.
well, the one thing I'll say is county code is about I think that's written in the county code about the vehicles.
Yeah.
The vehicles.
Decals,
So
yeah.
that's like, we're not changing.
But
code.
that,
No.
we're not changing that. We're not changing any of that, right?
No, we're
But
doing
we're not,
it.
No, Mike Sheridan mentioned it, but there's no action associated.
I mean, if life
Okay.
members wanna, if they meet the duty crew hours, then they can get the incentive.
That's what.
Yeah.
How many
Right,
life
right,
members do we
yeah.
have that, I guess that means effectively retired, you're not running anymore, you're,
Age down.
It means you've
After
served
you-
for 10 years,
After you've served for 10 years,
you become a life
you
member.
become you get a life member.
served.
yeah, but we're not, you're not,
Certain
right,
amount
but
of
you're not
calls.
getting you're only getting the benefit regardless of status if you meet the goals for the year, correct?
I just wanted to make sure we were still
Yeah.
doing something, that we weren't taking the sticker
No, we
away,
don't, no,
things of that.
nope.
No,
Do you need to tell him what the motion needs to be?
Just in the motion, if you could add for this fiscal year, then it will be based on the logs from each station they're submitted by the chief.
Yes, certified
Yep.
logs by station chiefs or
Yep.
whatever.
I move the Board of Supervisors approve the incentive plan for Fluvanna County Fire and EMS volunteers. And for fiscal year 25
Five.
to certify the hours and time spent by the volunteers through certified logs to be provided by each station or company chief with an effective date of 1 January 2025.
So,
Motion made by Mr. Hodge, second by Mr. Sheridan, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, passes 4-0. Oh, I'm sorry.
Tony,
Aye. I
he
voted
said
aye,
aye,
yes.
I heard him say aye. We gotta put him on the phone more often.
Passes 5-0. Yeah, you can hear more than when he's sitting here beside me. Item B, project agreement with Interos Design PC for space needs study, Mr. Whit.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So at the last meeting, the board approved a 1-year contract with Interis with 3 optional 1-year renewal periods. And we had included the rate sheets for Interis and their consultants in that last packet. So now this is the first project agreement. This is for the space study. They submitted a proposal for $136,295. So if you remember, we had a space study done back in 2019. This will totally revamp, update that study. And basically will include conceptual evaluations for the 2 new buildings, admin and social services, and the renovation of the existing admin and social services buildings. So the scope will include programming, existing conditions assessment, conceptual diagrams, and narratives, budget estimates, and the final report. And so then the board will have separate project agreements once we get further along with the pre-bid, the bid administration, and the construction administration. And then we recommend a motion, but happy to answer any questions.
And just one thing, just to add to that too, I mean, so when this was originally discussed, about kind of moving forward with this. So when we come to the need to go out to debt, or if the county wants to fund something cash, once we know what the cost of all this is, really kind of, where this came about is a lot of the funding agencies that issue debt, they're not going to do so with not having some due diligence done, like having a design or having some conceptual costs. So one thing that the board could do, what I would probably recommend is for this one, we just fund the 136,295 out of unassigned fund balance. Now, this will kind of give us some overarching cost of the whole kind of entire project for, building by building. Once we come to that, which I hope we will move forward with, moving forward with the design component, one thing you can do, there's something called a reimbursement resolution. So basically what that would do is the county could pay for it up front, but when and if we go out for debt at some point, you could get reimbursed back for those costs that you had kind of put out for this particular project. But again, to get to, really knowing what you need for debt proceeds, you really kind of need to have this done, you need to have the design done, and the design will give you all the specifics on what it looks like from a total cost standpoint. And at that point, we may decide everything can't be done at once. It may need to be phased, this building, or some variation thereof. So just wanted to just kind of note that piece. So you have 2 motions. Motion 1 is for the actual space needs study with and the items that were included, and then motion number 2 is a supplemental appropriation for fund balance for the project.
I move the Board of Supervisors approve project agreement number 1 between Fluvanna County and Interos Design PC for the space needs study for the administration and social services building totaling no more than $136,295. And further authorize the county administrator to execute the agreement subject to approval as to form by the county attorney.
All right, I want to just ask one question real quick, because I know I can do that, or do we need to get the second first?
I think
We can have the second, then have
I
discussion.
second the motion.
Okay.
Point of order.
Point of
discussion.
order, here we go. Y'all get me straight on all these rules here for me. we did this how long ago? We did
2019.
this we did this 5 years ago, but because it's 5 years, we're saying we have to do another one.
Yeah, because there's been a lot of things within buildings that have changed, equipment that has changed,
Okay.
departments that have changed.
I had
Yeah.
somebody reached out to me and said, you know, it's county this flush with cash that we can do the same thing we did 5 years ago. That's, I wanted to make sure we explained why,
Yeah, you
why
didn't,
we are doing.
you
this.
didn't have Department of Emergency Services. You
Okay.
didn't have
Well,
3
that's what I'm saying.
NIT. Yeah,
We've
we've grown.
got new departments and things of that nature, so
You
that's
didn't
why
have a
this had to
legal
be
team.
done.
Well, you also
And-
didn't have COVID, which resulted in a 2-year
Yeah,
delay
but
as
we're
well.
gonna
too.
blame this all on Mr. Whitten.
I can stay in my little building up the street. I like it. He hasn't moved in yet. Be fine.
I'm not sure if I'm gonna like him to be in a different building, so.
Like and being close. All right, so did motion in a second,
Motion second.
okay, anybody else have any other questions or anything? Motion made by Mr. Goode, second by Mr. Hodge, all in favor,
Aye.
chair votes aye, 5-0, I guess I'll go with that tonight. All right, moving on to,
We had any motion number.
oh, I'm
two.
sorry.
I move the Board of Supervisors approve a supplemental appropriation amount of $136,295 from unassigned fund balance to provide funding to complete the space needs study with Anteros Design PC.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Hodge, second by Mr. Goode, all in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
chair votes aye, 5-0. Moving on to item C, authorization to advertise for a public hearing to adopt the Thomas Jefferson Solid Waste Management Plan. Isabel O'Brien, Planner 2, Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission.
Hi, good evening, Chairman
Hello.
and members of the board. I'm Isabella O'Brien, a planner 2 with the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, and I'm here tonight to request authorization to advertise for a public hearing regarding a major amendment to the Thomas Jefferson Solid Waste Management Plan. So as you may know, all localities in Virginia are required to maintain a solid waste management plan, which states how they will meet the required 25 minimum recycling rate. They can do this alone or as part of a solid waste
I'm
planning.
gonna interrupt you. I just realized. Tony's daughter. Sorry.
A little nervous, it's right there, I guess. Yeah, so
Sorry about
Fluvanna. Fluvanna County participates in solid waste planning through the Thomas Jefferson Solid Waste Planning Unit, where the TJPDC maintains this plan on behalf of the planning unit. The plan contains waste generation estimates, information about landfill capacity, and a 20-year strategic planning timeframe, and it's available on the TJPDC website if you're curious. The plan is updated every 5 years, and the next required update is on October of 2026. However, this evening, we are discussing a major amendment to the plan, which is required due to the addition of a proposed landfill in Bremo Bluff into the plan. So legislation mandates that Dominion Energy remove coal ash from the North Ash Pond at Bremo Power Station. To manage this, Dominion Energy has submitted applications to Fluvanna County and DEQ to construct a lined captive industrial landfill on their property. This triggers a major amendment to the plan because it involves the addition of a new solid waste disposal facility. This amendment incorporates information about the proposed landfill into the plan, specifically on pages 2, 10, and 15, where copies are attached in the packet. So pursuant to the requirements of the Virginia Solid Waste Planning and Recycling Regulations, major amendments to plans require a planning unit to provide public notice and hold a public hearing in the affected locality to provide the public with the opportunity to comment on the proposed major amendment. So we are requesting authorization to advertise for a public hearing here in Fluvanna County on March 19th. Following the public hearing, we'll submit the amendment along with a summary of public comments to DEQ for the review and approval of the major amendment to add Dominion's energy planned landfill to the plan. But do note that DEQ approval of this amendment is separate from their permitting process for the landfill itself. And project details can be found on Dominion Energy's website, which is linked as well in the packet. So we recommend that Fluvanna County Board of Supervisors authorize advertising for the public hearing through public notice in the Fluvanna review and hold the public hearing in accordance with state requirements.
Mr. O'Brien, you have any objections?
You're on mute, sir.
You're mute.
Where's that button?
Anybody
Sorry, I
else?
was trying not to cough into anybody's ear. I don't have any objections, and as a chair of the TJPC, I would strongly recommend the board passes this. And as the father of Isabella O'Brien, I'm sure she would appreciate that.
Sounds like a motion.
Yes, I'm happy to make the motion.
And just one quick thing. There was just a slight motion amendment from what was in the board package. And so you can see there was something crossing out the word adopt, and then instead of adopt, discuss a minor amendment. That just, and you want to provide some clarity on that?
Yes, so Fluvanna doesn't have to formally adopt the plan. This is just a public hearing to discuss actually a major amendment. I called you, but it's actually a major amendment.
So let's do this here.
What
Yes.
would technically,
The
we're having
commission,
the public hearing would adopt it regardless, so, right? And so is it to have the public hearing to adopt a major amendment, or is it public hearing for the
really
actual
just
adoption?
so it's really just based off of Virginia's code language. The adoption process is the 5-year update. That's when it would be for adoption, but this is a major amendment in between adoptions. So it's not really a formal adoption process. That's just the language that's stated.
So basically, we're amending an adopted plan.
Yes.
All right.
Exactly.
Thank you for the clarification. All right, I move the Board of Supervisors approve the authorization to advertise for a public hearing to discuss a major amendment to the Thomas Jefferson Solid Waste Management Plan.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. O'Brien, seconded by Mr. Hodge, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Chair votes aye, 5-0.
At least you're hearing about.
Yeah.
But I still had to vote.
It is the fence. It wasn't his fault.
It's very, very nice to see you, young
Good
lady.
to see you too, Mr. Chair.
What
Thank you.
about the rest of it?
I'm her favorite, that's all I'm saying. I don't know if I want to claim that one.
Item D, bike repair and information station in Palmyra Village, Mr. Schmidt.
Mr. Chair, members of the board. So we're here to discuss a bike repair station and information, or bike repair and information station in the Palmyra Village. So the Fluvanna County Rotary Club approached us probably around September, summer of last year to collaborate on a bike repair station. They also applied for a grant. This station would include a bike information kiosk highlighting local businesses and attractions, bike repair tools, and a bike rack. We explored 4 potential sites and selected one that we thought would work the best for us, close to the Old Stone Jail. This station actually will support bike cyclists across the bike route 76 that was rerouted through the Palmyra Village. And we've got some examples of what the station will look like along with the kiosk. Examples of those are in our community already. We have one out front, and we also have some of the bike repair tools over in Pleasant Grove. So the location that we selected, again, is right down the street from the Old Stone Jail. It will be taking up one of the parking spots, probably a little bit of the grassy area right there at it.
There's kind of like a little gravel pad when here's 15 and you're coming in, there's like a little gravel stone jails right here. And so there's a little gravel pad with like some electric poles right there. So we would, it was discussed to put it right there, and that was really the best location to put it.
And the next slide will show you a street view. Specifically, we did gray out the cars. So right there where the white car is and maybe over into the grassy area a little bit is where we've selected. Then I gave a street view, kind of show you the view shed right there at the courthouse.
And you know, just from a concern standpoint, making sure, one, we didn't want it too close to the stone jail. And so we talked to the historical society, just to make sure they didn't have any concerns from it, like, you know, potentially affecting anything from a historic nature. And they were fine with kind of the location. We had a couple locations in this area that we discussed, but after kind of meeting with VDOT and there's some considerations for overhead power lines, this is determined to be the best spot.
So funding for this project will come strictly from the Rotary Club as well as with volunteers, mostly working on the construction. The proposal requests county approval for the site. And the county will be responsible for maintaining the kiosk as part of regular maintenance in the village and, lawn mowing around it. There is future expansion opportunities potential to add additional amenities to further enhance the tourism in the area. That's it. Any questions?
Yes, I've got two. So it says the county will be responsible for the maintenance.
Mhm.
If the tools get vandalized, is the county on the hook for repairing the station?
Yes.
So if somebody keeps coming needing wrenches and they bring bolt cutters and they keep taking the wrenches, we got to keep putting them back.
Either that or the next people don't get wrenches.
We put a camera up.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I guess you could always put a camera up, but
And the second question, you said you talked to VDOT?
yeah, we had VDOT come out. So the one thing, we're still waiting to get formal approval because we want it to be off the right of way. So we're waiting to see how far off the right of way they would need it to be.
Now, more so than just the right of way, did you talk to them about the impending streetscape project that may change that roadway? And it's not going to be near the sidewalks that were projected either.
Well, again, so let me go back to the picture here. So again, the streetscape project is projected here on this side going down that way. There's gonna be no streetscape where this is being projected.
Yeah,
Proposed, I should
because
say.
originally the space and right in front of the steps was going to close off and become part of the park.
Correct,
And it was going to become a one-way system in Palmyra.
correct.
So that means while traffic moves one way on the road in front of the existing storefronts and county buildings, it'll be in the opposite direction on the other one. And they'd projected like diagonal offset parking and sidewalks through there.
Yeah, well, so what was, so I don't have the plan with me, but I mean, so if you go right along here, it was right along here, it was gonna be parallel parking.
Yeah.
Parallel parking to the sidewalk. So where my cursor is, just imagine a sidewalk kind of connecting, kind of where you see that dark
Yeah.
dark part piece in the pavement going to Civil War Park and continuing down around Civil War Park. So a sidewalk would be there, you'd have parallel parking along there. And then some of the diagonal parking would maybe be down in this area
Yeah.
right here.
As long as we go back through and somebody's looked
Yeah,
and made sure that it doesn't conflict with their plans, because I'd hate to put it in and then have them rip it up.
yeah, like I said, I had someone, I was gonna meet with Scott Thornton one day. He couldn't be here, so he had one of his other VDOT folks come out. And so I met with them, kind of showed them both locations. And now that we specifically kind of honed in one location more, they've got all the information. So I'm just waiting for them to give feedback, and certainly they're aware of
Yeah.
the streetscape project.
And are we gonna put a trash can there? So like if they're changing bike tubes and whatever, something for them to dispose of any rubbish they have?
One black container.
There was
It's been some
currently
time in England, didn't you?
a trash
Rubbish.
can at the steps right now, and usually during special events, we bring it down, so it could be, we just move it.
Oh,
Yeah.
here's the
And so
question.
Mr. Spitzer just, you had talked about getting vandalized, and so we've had the bike pump at the park. We have a similar thing at the park, and it's been there for about 7 years, and it says that it hasn't gotten vandalized
Gee, thanks.
in that period of time. And they did have to fix the pump, but it was a while ago.
But that has hanging wrenches and all like that? Okay.
So
Something
here's my
similar.
question.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a one-way street, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
The ones going the opposite direction might not see it. Is there a place where we can have it where it's on both lanes? Both directions, traffic's going both directions. That would be my only thought. If they go right by it and never see it
Yeah.
and don't realize it's there.
And what going?
The
Well, that's a
traffic
good
would be
idea.
One way on that street.
Usually on your bike map, routes will show where the repair stands are. So if you go like on Strava and you have your
Okay.
bike route, it shows you where all the
Like I
repair
said, I
stands
just trying
are.
to
So they'll
figure out
know
a way to
where
make
they
it
are.
easy.
We had talked about that. I mean, again, we had looked at multiple locations like the kind of by the rail trail parking lot. We had looked there. That's really tight there and it's kind of covered. We had looked at some other locations at the bottom of the courthouse, but it's kind of secluded and just, it's not in the best spot, and just kind of considering everything, because we did think about
Yeah,
that.
that's the only thing I just, looking at this, I was like, okay, And I know what you're saying, because they got firehouses, they got homes marked on the trails.
Yeah, I mean,
So if you need
anyone
help,
that's
stop
doing,
here.
specifically doing the bike 76 route, they're following maps and trails and stuff like that, so they're gonna
They'll
have.
have the little Wahoo on their bike that shows the route and everything on the
Okay.
front of their bike.
We have a resident expert. here.
Yes.
Resident bike deal,
Yeah. All right,
our biker deal.
I have a question.
Yep.
So if somebody backs into that thing, knocks it down, I mean, maybe, looks like the way that thing's anchor bolted in the ground, it may do more damage to their car than it does.
Well, I mean,
we'd be,
one thing we could do, maybe we could put some bollards or like some
Yeah.
wooden bollards or something around it just to protect it, or we can talk to them, that might be, I mean, again, I don't think that would be a heavy lift. But yeah, that's a good point.
anything else? Anybody want to make a motion?
I move the Board of Supervisors approve the designated location for a bike repair and information station on county-owned property in the historic Palmyra Village to be constructed by the Fluvanna County Rotary Club.
second,
Motion made by Mr. Hyde, second by Mr. Goode, all in favor.
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye, 5-0. All right, we're gonna move on to consent agenda. Anybody have anything to pull?
And the changes have been made and posted.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm happy with it.
All right, any unfinished business?
No,
No, I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second,
Motion made by Mr. Hodges, second by Mr. Goode, all in favor.
aye.
Aye.
So unprofessional. Chair votes aye, 5-0.
Look, the man is not feeling good and, we're gonna cut him some slack.
Okay.
Yeah, what did I do wrong?
Not a thing, sir. I'm defending
Thank
you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I'll just stay muted. Unfinished business, anything?
Yeah, I've got two things. Guess it was before the holidays, Ms. Harris presented on some options for surveys, outsourcing surveys for staff. Is there any updates on that?
Yeah, the one that we were waiting on, there was one from that Dr. Kelly with the schools had recommended. We have not had any response. The one that we do have a preference for, they've been pretty responsive to trying to get something going, so. I mean, I think with the one that we were looking for a response from, I don't think we're going to get it because we've reached out many times. So I think the ones that we had provided some responses on in the cost, I think those are probably the best things to make a decision on.
All right, so is it to the point where we would need to make a decision on what we use and how much it costs?
Yeah, I mean, we were gonna bring something formal back to the board because I think we had talked about doing something right after budget season to kind of get that going.
Okay.
You vote no?
Hmm?
Yeah, the second item.
Yeah, Dan, was there any update? I know we're a month out from this, a little over a month out from this public hearing, but have you had time to do any research on the taxing district and the legality of that as it relates to the meals tax?
No, I haven't
Okay.
researched it yet. Since it got pushed to March 19th, I kind of was working on other projects, but it's on my list.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Anything else? Any new business? All right, moving on to the second round of public comment. Anybody wishing to address the board, please come to the podium, state your name and address. And remember to keep your comments to 5 minutes on topic and directed to the board. Anybody wish to speak?
Hello, Howard Lugmarcino, 24 Jennings Drive, Palmyra, Virginia. I'm here representing the Lake Rescue. Want to thank the board for taking the action you took tonight. It is something, we're getting ready to do a membership drive and something that will help that process. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for stepping up.
Yeah. amen.
Thank you for your leadership.
Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we will move on to our closed meeting. Who has the,
Oh, do we have a yellow? Oh, man, he's ready.
Mr. Chair, I move the Fluvanna County Board of Supervisors enter into a closed meeting pursuant to the provisions of section 2.2-3711A1, 2.2-3711A5, 2.2-3711A6 and 2.2-3711A8 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended for the purpose of discussing personnel, employees of the Department of Emergency Services, prospective industry, prospective business updates in the Fork Union and Columbia districts, investment of funds, county utility easement in the Columbia district, shared septic and drain field easement for a county-owned property, and legal matters, contract user grants under the water and sewer ordinance, and Zion Crossroads, and legal advice involving the Department of Emergency Services.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Hodge, second by Mr. Sheridan, all in favor?
Aye.
Tony?
Unmute. Unmute.
Sorry, I'm trying not to cough in everybody's ear. Aye.
Chair votes aye, 5-0.
So Mr. O'Brien, once I get over to the Morris room, we'll, I guess Kelly will just use the same link and. Or is that?
I mean, I can just stay on it, whichever you like.
They gotta cut it
What-
off.
what's that,
and
sir?
put it back on.
Yeah, I mean.
Hey, we made it to close meeting in an hour.
I know. Not as fancy as that.
Macon, oh.
So we.
Yeah.
Why don't we, I'll text you and once I get all the computer and everything set up, we'll get you up on the screen.
Sounds great. Thank
All
you.
right, thanks.
We'll give you a help. You know. That's.
Okay, you're in.
I wore a tie.
All dressed
Ready
up,
to go.
nowhere to go.
Mr. Chair, I move the closed meeting be adjourned and the Fluvanna County Board of Supervisors convene again in open session. Be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors does hereby certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under section 2.2 3711 A of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting.
Motion made by Mr. Hodge, seconded by Mr. Sheridan. Mr. Hodge,
Aye.
Mr. Sheridan,
Uh,
Mr. Goode,
Aye.
Mr. O'Brien,
Aye.
chair votes aye 5-0.
I move that we adjourn.
second.
Motion made by Mr. Hodge, seconded by Mr. Sheridan, all in favor?
Aye.
Uh,